Second service, how we doing? Man, baptisms are so cool, aren't they? It's just so fun to get to be a part of that and hear somebody's journey, their story, and be able to identify with different parts of it. It's just, it's pretty awesome. Hey, so I know many of you may not be surprised to hear this, but I'm prone to hyperbole a little bit, and I love the descriptive phrase, best ever. Like if I like something, the chances I will be describing it at some point as the best ever are pretty good. I love it. I'm just an evangelist for all the things that I love, like the best tacos ever. It's not an accident that Tacos Galacticos comes here on a lot of Sundays, right? They're the best tacos ever, best steak ever, best shorts ever. I have a particular brand of shorts that I love, and I pretty much almost wear exclusively. Best shoes ever, right? I mean, I'm all about the best ever. If I like it, the chances are it will soon become the best ever. Let me give you an example. I don't know, a couple years back now, Alice and I really got into watching the show Cake Boss. You're familiar with the show, right? It kind of follows the life of Carlo's Bakery in Hoboken, one of the famous bakeries in America. And well, after we made it through a couple of seasons, we've decided now that Carlo's Bakery is the best bakery ever. And it was nearing Alice's birthday, and I asked her, "What do you want for your birthday?" And she said, "Well, I want Buddy." That's Buddy. He's kind of like the big cheese over at Carlo's Bake Shop. She wanted Buddy to make her a birthday cake. Now, I'm a girl dad, 2 daughters, and I feel like it's my responsibility to spoil my girls. And so the first thing I did was, well, if she wants Buddy to make her a cake, Buddy's going to make her a cake. And so I started, trying to figure it out, and I quickly realized there's no way I could ever afford a custom Buddy cake, nor have it delivered. But what I did discover is that Carlo's Bakery would overnight some of their sort of standard stuff. So they had some cakes and pastries and different things like that. And so I was like, oh, well, she's 7. She'll think Buddy made this cake. And so I actually had a cake flown overnight from New Jersey and made it for Alice's birthday party, and we had Buddy's cake for her birthday. It was incredible, and it really was the best cake ever. In fact, it was so cool. I actually wanted to show you the cake that I got her. We flew this in from New Jersey last night. It showed up in Visalia yesterday, so there it is. There's the cake. But here's the thing about this cake. I already know it's the best cake ever, so I wanted to give one of Buddy's cakes away today to someone in the second service. And so here's what I need to know. Does anyone actually have a birthday today? Is it anyone's birthday? It's your birthday today? Well, happy birthday, and a cake is on us. So now here's the disclaimer. That has gluten and all the other allergens. So don't call us if you go into cardiac arrest or, you need an EpiPen or anything. That's got all the things, but please enjoy that cake on us. It's really the best cake ever. And speaking of the best ever, today we are starting a brand new teaching series that we're calling The Best Chapter Ever. And here's really what we're doing. We just want to take a deep dive, sort of almost a classic kind of Bible study vibe, into just one of the 1,189 chapters that we find in the Bible. We've pulled one, and we're going to say this is the best one. It is worth noting, I will just say this, the Bible wasn't originally written with chapter and verse divisions. We actually didn't start doing that till about 500 years ago. And the idea is that we wanted to make the Bible more accessible, right? And so we thought chapter and verse, you could be a little easier for reading, a little easier for studying. And the truth is, it really is. It's much easier to identify where something got written if we know if it has an address. And so it's really, really helpful. But sometimes we forget that the Bible wasn't written like that, and it can kind of take away a little bit from the context and the richness of what's written. So, for example, the best chapter ever is not a chapter like in a chapter in a book. It's actually just a small portion of an ancient letter, private correspondence that survived history. It was written by a man named Paul, who was kind of an early Christian leader, prolific writer, church planner. He went around the entire Mediterranean basin just planting these little Christian churches. And he wrote this letter to the Christians in Rome around the year 57. So first century, the year 57. And so with that in mind, today we call this letter he wrote the book of Romans, and the chapter, so the portion we're going to be looking at today, we call it chapter 8. And so as we get into this for the next few weeks, the best chapter ever is Romans chapter 8. And again, it was just this letter written to some Jesus people in the first century who lived in really what was the metropolis of ancient Rome. In fact, fun fact, you probably don't care, but I'm going to tell you anyway, that the population of Rome in the first century was 1 million people. Now you think today 1 million people, whatever, there's lots of cities that are like, 10 million, but in the ancient world, 1 million people was a massive. Here's how it's massive. Another city in all of Europe did not reach a population of 1 million until London in 1810. So 1,800 years after Rome reached 1 million is the next time we figured out how to get a city that big. And it's in the midst of sort of this massive sprawl of people where, honestly, ancient Rome, it did not have some of the modern technologies that we have. So you try to cram 1 million people into kind of a small space. Some weird, the daily kind of grind for survival was real. Ancient Rome was notorious for things like poor sanitation. For example, they didn't have running, toilets like we do in the first century. And they did have public baths where you can kind of go and handle business. But for the most part, most of the people actually lived in apartments, multi-storied apartments. They just had a bucket. And the way they would empty their bucket was just to, chuck everything out the window. In fact, it's written, all sorts of different sources from ancient Rome tell us that it was like a hazard to walk down the streets of ancient Rome because you might have feces land on you that just got chucked out of, a third-story window. In fact, in the law code of ancient Rome, you could sue someone if they dumped their bucket of potty on you, right? So poor sanitation was a huge issue. Fragile food security was a huge issue in ancient Rome. Obviously, the prevalence of disease, if people are just chucking, whatever happened in the middle of the night out the window. There's periodic plagues, violent crime, really lousy housing. These tall kind of multi-storied apartments would catch on fire a lot. It's just kind of crazy. But it's in that context that a network of 5 or 6, we're not totally sure, 5 or 6 different Christian house churches emerged. At this time, there was no church campuses and buildings or anything like that. They just met in somebody's living room, somebody that had a little bit more resources than most, where they actually had a bit of a living room. But it's in this context that these little house churches emerged. And Paul, this guy Paul, is writing a letter because here's why. It's become clear that the churches in Rome had sort of lost the plot line that is Jesus. And they started fighting with each other. There's a lot of division among the churches, even within any individual church. They'd lost the plot line. And so Paul writes this letter, try to bring them back around and remind them, hey, don't let kind of the storyline or the plot line of culture decide for you how your little house church is going to operate, but that Jesus is, in fact, inviting us into something different. And so Paul writes this letter, right? And so I will just warn you for the next few weeks, it is kind of a buckle up series because Paul's a giant of an intellect. And he writes like an academic, so it's really, his writing is dense. It can be hard to follow. It's very easy if you start reading it, it won't take long. You're sort of scratching your head going, what in the world is this guy talking about? So for the next few weeks, I am going to do my best to take this dense stuff that Paul wrote, try to make it as simple as possible, and really show you why I think what Paul wrote almost 2,000 years ago matters for us today. Romans chapter 8, it's the best chapter ever. Because, here it is. Romans 8, I think, is the perfect message for those of us who are a little exhausted by or critical of or even wounded from organized religion, right? We're just kind of over religion. And yet, we kind of have this tension because we still retain a certain, respect or even possibility that Jesus is who he says he is, that there is something to this Jesus guy. And Romans 8, I think, is just the perfect few words for helping us sort of navigate that tension. We know religion is not great. And yet, we have hope that Jesus may just be as great as everybody's saying he is. Right? In fact, Romans 8 shows us this. So we just kind of, we made boxes. So religion would say, it's all about just fit in with the group by buying into their way of thinking and behaving. And if you don't, you're out. If you do, you're in. But Jesus comes around and says, no, I just want to invite you to fit in with the way of love and compassion and hope because it's a more beautiful way to live. Right? Religion exists to control you. A lot of religion has to do with like sort of just behavior control. Sometimes it's like sin management. We just want to make sure you don't mess up as much, right? But Jesus, no, it's not about that. I just want to restore you, right? In fact, here's the thing. This isn't Christian. Like, this is just religion. All religions, for the most part, share very similar values and very similar prohibitions. For example, this is just one example, but Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, we all have a version of the golden rule. You know that one, right? Treat people the way you want to be treated. Like, all of those faiths have the same one. In fact, in the height of sort of like, hate and fear around Islam, 9/11 and all of that, I actually intentionally went and made friends with the imam, the pastor, the Muslim pastor essentially, here at our local mosque by Divisadero Middle School. And we just hung out. I would just go, we'd sit on a couch in the mosque, and we would just talk. And we found way more points of connection than we ever found points of division. And it was just really eye-opening for me. In fact, it's not just one thing that most religions actually agree on. There's actually 8. There's an author, his name's C.S. Lewis. Maybe you're familiar with him. He wrote like Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe and all Chronicles of Narnia, that stuff. He's also a great kind of Christian thinker. And he wrote a book called The Abolition of Man. And in it, he says, listen, all religions actually share 8 things. And here's what they are. Here's the list. He says, every religious system in the world, and in the history of the world, shared these 8 ideas. Don't harm others with word or deed. All religions agree, like don't hurt people. All religions agree, honor your parents. All religions agree, be kind to your siblings and the elderly. All religions agree, don't have sex with somebody else's spouse. All religions agree, be honest in all your dealings. Don't lie, care for those who are weaker, and put others first. Every religion says yes to those 8 ideas. Now, it's important. Right? Besides some of these common do's and do nots, right? There's one other thing that all religions have in common, and it's this. It's that followers of these religions aren't consistent in following the rules of their religions. True? Right? And very true even within our own sort of Christian faith, right? In every religion, in every sect, in every cult, in every gathering of people around some spiritual concept, in every single one of those, here's what's common in all of them, failure. Failure. In every religion, right? Every religion, there is some do's and don'ts, and then there are a whole bunch of people that are not following the do's and don'ts, right? And the reason we know that there's failure in every single world religion is because every piece of literature coming from these world religions addresses the failure of men and women to the laws and to the rules of that religion. In other words, every religion says, here is what we ought to do, here is what we ought not do, and then we run around not doing those things, right? That's just true. Religion says, here's what we all agree on that's like important and good for society and culture and family and relating to God and all of that, but we're not good at those things. Maybe we could put it this way, just the bottom line. The bottom line of religion is you ought not to. You did it anyway, and now you're at odds with God. But here's the thing. You don't even have to be religious to understand that or buy into that, right? Because all of us have fallen short. All of us know what it's like to fail. And even if you don't believe in a God, you've fallen short of your own standards for you. Right? Forget God, forget Christianity or any kind of, right? Any other kind of religious system, right? Forget all of that. Because what's true is all of us have disappointed ourselves. We've all fallen short of even what we hoped we would be or do. All of us know this. And not because we went to church and not because you're religious. Like, we all know. Outside of church, we just shouldn't lie to people. We all know if you're going to stand up in an altar in front of a whole bunch of people and make promises to another person, you should keep those promises. We all know, regardless of religion or lack of religion, we all know that if you sign a contract, you should live up to that contract. All of us understand, religious or not, that there are some oughts and there's some ought nots. There are some do's and there's some do nots. And regardless of whether you are religious or even believe in God, you have fallen short of your own standard for behavior. And as a result of that falling short, here's what's true of every single one of us in this room. We feel guilty. We feel guilty. And this guilt, it's real. Our conscience weighs on us. It feels like, we even talk about it, right? There's just this weight on my shoulders, right? We have language to describe what this guilt is doing to us. And we've done a lot to try to get rid of the guilt, right? We know we've done something that we shouldn't have done, or we didn't do something we should have done, right? And we know we've tried to sort of talk ourselves into different things to act as a release valve for that guilt, right? To lift the weight that's on our shoulders from the guilt. We say things like, well, it wasn't that bad, or at least I'm not as bad as, that person over there. And then sometimes we just say this, and can you just please stop saying this? This is the most worthless statement in the whole world. Well, nobody's perfect. Yeah, okay, that's great, right? Let's write that down because nobody's aware of that one. Right? It's just an unhelpful statement. They're all unhelpful statements. Well, I'm not that bad. It didn't hurt that many people, right? Or at least I'm not as bad as them. If you're going to use one, maybe use that one. Just let's attack somebody else. That'll be good, right? But we come up with, why do we do that? Well, because we need a release valve. There is a weight on our shoulders from the guilt of us falling short of even our own standards, regardless of if you believe they're God's standards or not, right? And because it's not permanent, this guilt comes back, the weight comes back. Now we're drinking too much, we're medicating too much, we're working too hard. We're trying to serve our way out of our guilt. We're trying to give our way out of guilt. Some of you, you give to nonprofits like Neighborhood Church just because you feel guilty. Some of you are just trying to, I'm sorry, your way out of guilt. You can't find it. You can't find a thing that's going to keep the weight off your shoulders permanently. Because there's some do's and there's some do nots. And we're terrible at them. And we're either going to be at odds with God, or if you don't believe in God, you just find yourself at odds with you. We're all in the same boat, and this is a huge problem. We mess up, but it gets worse than we mess up. We also can't go back. We can't get a redo on any of this stuff. So we're sort of stuck with the mess up. What do we do with that? Also, I hope you're glad you came to church today. You can't go back and do anything. You can't parent again. You can't go back and wish your child was 14 again because now she's 25, and you can't go back and reparent. What's done is done. And no matter how many times you've said you're sorry, no matter how many times you've tried to regroup with that relationship, you can't go back and change the past. It is what it is. You're stuck with it. We all know this agony. We've all fallen short. Again, either of some law we think came from God or just something like we just think that's what good people do or whatever. And the guilt that it creates, because we know there's some do's and some do nots and we haven't done them. The guilt that that creates, it's a mess for us emotionally, spiritually, physically, relationally. It's a weight that begins to break down every other part of our lives. You messed up, you fell short, can't go back. What do you do? What do you do? Right? What do you do? It's a question I think all religion brings to us. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hindu, right? Whatever it is, what do I do with my past that is providing for me a nice giant weight on my shoulders that is screwing up the rest of my life? What do I do with that? It'd be great if you had an answer for that. And here's the thing, religion doesn't. Religion does not have an answer to that problem. It's great at highlighting your problems, right? Religion is great, and maybe some of you know exactly what I'm talking about because whatever church you grew up in just reminded you again and again and again, hey, don't forget, you're a terrible person, right? And for many of you, it's why you walked away. Because you said, I can't live up, so what's the point, right? Here's essentially what religion says. Religion says, listen, there's a God or gods, and God has this standard for you to live by, but it's too hard, so good luck, never quit. See you on the other side, maybe, if you do it right. Have a nice day, but make sure you leave your offering at the door, right? That's religion. Again, some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's into this mess that Jesus of Nazareth shows up with a different message, with a potential answer to the problem that religion helped create but has no answer for. Right? And here's the thing, Jesus, he doesn't not affirm the list of 8. He's all about an ethic for sure. For him, you don't actually need rules, because for him, Jesus is the ethic of love, and you don't need rules with love because that would just be redundant, right? Because you don't lie to people you love, right? You don't kill people that you love. Like, you don't need rules. So Jesus just shows up and says, I'm all about ethic, the ethic of love, so go do that, right? But he goes further than that, way further than that. And Jesus does something that no religion had done, has done, or is even capable of doing. Here's what Jesus did. Jesus offered a permanent solution to the we've messed up, now what problem that religion created. Jesus came to offer to the solution that religion creates. Religion is so great at highlighting you're not a good person and then says good luck. Jesus showed up and said, that's a problem that doesn't need to exist. Jesus' message, and his message was so simple, it was so revolutionary, it was so life-changing, the world had never experienced or heard anything like it. And Paul, our author of this letter that we call the book of Romans in chapter 8, begins to unpack for us Jesus' solution, his permanent solution to the problem that religion had created. So I just want to get into it today. Really, it's just so dense. One sentence. We're going to look at one sentence because I think in this one sentence is wrapped up really the beginnings, the foundation of the problem. I've messed up. Now what? And religion, you've tried every religion there is and you've gone to every church there is and you still feel the weight of guilt. Paul is about to help us understand why we don't have to feel that way anymore. That there is a way forward that's honest about what we've done or not done. And yet, we can live in freedom from that. Let's take a look. Therefore, Paul writes, there is now no condemnation. We know this word condemnation, right? Like we know condemned. If you get condemned, you're off to jail, you're off to the punishment, you're off to whatever. There is now none of that for those who are in Christ Jesus. Remember, Christ as a title means king. So there's no condemnation for those who are in King Jesus. Now, I'll just tell you, what's so fascinating to me about these words isn't even the words themselves, it's the who behind the words. This guy, Paul. I want to tell you a little bit about him because these words become so much more, I think, potent for me and profound when I get Paul. Because this isn't preacher talk for Paul. This wasn't a theory. This wasn't Paul sitting down wondering, hey, I wonder what would be cool to put in the Bible. It just wasn't that for him. This was a man, Paul, if we know his story. His life experiences, his life choices had left him so broken, so ashamed, and so guilty. These words are coming from a man, I promise you, that had more regret than everybody in this room combined. Because before we meet what Christians will eventually call the Apostle Paul, contributing author of the Bible, super Christian, all of that. Before the Apostle Paul, he went by his Jewish name, Saul of Tarsus, is where he was from. And he was essentially, as Saul of Tarsus, he was essentially a terrorist. He was a religious leader within Judaism, and he took it upon himself to wipe out the Jesus movement from the face of the planet. And he began arresting, imprisoning, torturing, and in some cases, executing innocent men and women in the name of God. And I wonder, sometimes I wonder about this guy, and I wonder after he converts to Jesus, I wonder if he'd wake up in the middle of the night to the screams of his victims. Like, I wonder if that terror kept him up. I just couldn't even imagine, right? Because after his conversion to Jesus, he's now a part of this community whose fathers and sons and cousins and aunts and sisters and mothers and daughters he had arrested, imprisoned, and executed in the name of God. And now he's not just a part of it, he's like their leader and teacher, right? Can you imagine the tension? In fact, the tension gets recorded in the Bible. There's a whole book that's kind of like the story of Paul. It's called Acts. And in it, people are questioning, like, is his conversion is he all about Jesus? Is this like a trick? right? Is he authentic? How do we know he's not doing all of this just so he can like infiltrate our ranks and then arrest and kill us all? They didn't trust him, and why? I wouldn't either. And what's so interesting is Paul, he never, ever, ever denies his guilt. Not one time. He records it. He writes it down so you and I can read about it. It's how we know his story. So instead of allowing his guilt to like define him, instead of spending every sort of waking moment of every day trying to distance himself from his guilt, when he becomes a follower of Jesus, he says, listen, I found a third way in this Jesus, where I can be honest about what maybe I've done or not done in those places I've fallen short. I can be honest about all of that, and I don't have to come up with weird, excuses, and, nobody's perfect, and, I'm not as bad as them. I can get rid of all of that, be honest, and find this place of freedom and hope, and like the weight's lifted, and I just don't know. And this is him just trying to describe that. Therefore, there's now no condemnation. And I know what I'm talking about. I think he's just screaming that. I know what I'm talking about. I killed people and in the name of God and called it good. I tortured them. I orphaned kids on behalf of the name of God. I'm telling you, in this Jesus, I have found something no religion has ever given me. There's a weight off my shoulders. There is no condemnation, and it's only found in this guy. Jesus, it's a new day. It's a new era. God is doing something brand new and like unbelievable, and the world's never seen it in this Jesus. And as a result of what God's doing through this Jesus, there's now the weights, it can be off. You can be honest and also not wallow in it or let it define you. There's no condemnation. That there's a space, there's a place where your actual past isn't forgotten. It's there. But you're not condemned either. The weight's lifted. You can be a mess, right? Your mess can be faced, I think is how we put it. Your mess can be faced, even though it can't be erased. It can be embraced, and you can live with the weight off your shoulders. You can live without this condemnation. You no longer have to pretend it didn't happen. You no longer have to live again with some made-up narrative that just sort of acts as a release valve to get the weight off your shoulders long enough for you to kind of survive and do life. No, you can face your junk head on and yet be free. Either of your own self-condemnation or any version of like divine condemnation. The weight's gone. And where is this space? Well, he tells us, right? It's in, therefore there's now no condemnation for those who are in King Jesus, right? You're in now, and this is not Paul being like philosophical or metaphorical. He thinks that you can actually change your address. Like he thinks that that's possible, that you can go to this place that is in King Jesus. And so the question then would be, well, okay, great. How do I get there? And the journey, I think, is just so much shorter than you think, right? Guess what? There's not a list of religious hoops to jump through. There's just not, right? Here it is. Just be willing to face the condemning truth about yourself, and that's true of everybody. We're guilty. We've fallen short. We have screwed up somewhere, somehow. Okay. Just admit that, and then trust Jesus is who he says he is. That's it. That's it. It's in these two decisions, we find ourselves uncondemned and the weight lifted off. And yes, we can be honest and hold the narrative that, yeah, there's been moments in my life I wish I could get back that I can't get back. You will join the club that everybody is a member of, right? And then just trust that Jesus really, Paul's going, I'm telling you, I don't even know how it all works, but I am telling you in this Jesus. I'm holding truthfully for like the rest of the history to read about my junk. And I'm telling you, there is no weight on my shoulders. There's now no condemnation, right? It's 2 steps. Now, certainly, again, Jesus invites you to, once you make these 2 steps, to live out a way of love, right? That's just beautiful, and it's good for you, and it's good for the world. I mean, but it's not like a hoop. It's just an invitation. Wow. Now that the weight's lifted off your shoulders, there's a wonderful way to live, and it's called love, right? I love how one pastor in New York, his name's Tim Keller, puts it. He says this: you're worse than you think you are. Thanks, Tim. But also far more loved than you think you are. I think that's Tim sort of summarizing what Paul's saying. right? If you're in King Jesus, no matter what your religious background, no matter what you've done, no matter how far you've gone, no matter what kind of rules and laws you've broken, once you're placed in King Jesus, from God's perspective, you're just not condemned. The weight's gone. It's just gone. A religious system may still try to condemn you. You may try to condemn you. Your friends and family may try to condemn you. The church you grew up in may try to condemn you. But once you're connected to Jesus, you're no longer condemned. You may feel condemned. You may feel like you need to spend the rest of your life trying to uncondemn yourself and earn your way back. But Paul says, I'm telling you, trust me, I'm worse. Whatever your story is, mine's worse. And I'm telling you, if you get the magnitude of what I'm saying in this one sentence, you'll understand what it feels like to live with the weight off your shoulders. So again, let me just summarize. Religion points to three things. We should do something, we don't do them, and now we're at odds with God or ourselves if you're here and you don't believe in God. But you're at odds. You have fallen short. You are guilty of something, right? And religion, this is just religion. It's just this treadmill. You just run. How do you get off of that? You can't get off of that. And then Jesus shows up and just says, we're done with that. Just get off. We're not doing treadmills. We're not doing that. Right? Maybe Peloton now, but no treadmills, right? So, just kidding. Right? And he points to something infinitely better, himself. And he says, I promise, just if you'd say yes to what I'm offering and spend the rest of your life, we could just get to know each other. I'm telling you, it's an alternative to religion. Right? And he's saying, I'm able to do what religion has never been able to do and won't ever be able to do. What religion has tried to do, Jesus does. What religion has tried to do, Jesus does. Religion only ever got good at telling you why you're a screw-up. That's the only thing religion's good at. Right? Jesus comes and says, let me show you a way where, yeah, the past, it's there. But you don't have to live with it. It doesn't have to define you. There's something, the weight can be lifted, and we can have another conversation about what's most defining about you. So whether you're Baptist, Presbyterian, Catholic, Muslim, Hindu, Jewish, doesn't matter. Here's the thing, if there's still something in you, that when you pray, it goes something like, dear God, I know I messed up, I'm such a failure and a loser, and I promise I'll never do it again. If and let's make a deal, like, I won't do this again, but if you could do this for me, or if I won't do this, if you could just, I don't want to go to hell, that'd be great. Like, if your prayers sound anything like that, you, literally don't get what Jesus is offering. You're totally missing the boat. You still have weight. Because Jesus, why are you praying? The weight's gone. We've already done, we've done the hey, I'm a mess and I just trust Jesus. So let's stop having hey, remember that thing I did in college? I wish I had that weekend back. We don't need to have that conversation anymore. We're done with that conversation. Now we're having a conversation about what it means to live in Jesus out of love with the weight off our shoulders. Jesus is man, just with this guilt thing and shame and all of that, just bring it to me. Eyes wide open, no stories, excuses, weird narratives with nobody's perfect. Okay, great, we got it. Let's just agree. We're all on the same page. We're all in the club of we screwed up somewhere. We lied to get our way. We broke their heart. You knew better. You did it anyway. Whatever it is, just own it. And then Jesus goes, and also, you're not condemned. Can I just take that weight from you? Let's talk about a different kind of you, a you that's not living condemned, that's not living with unbearable weight, that's not living defined by what they did, but who they could become. We're guilty, but there's a world of no condemnation right here, right now, and his name is Jesus. Look, this idea is so profound. Its magnitude is beyond anything that a quick little, 30-minute teaching could ever do. But it's changed the world once. It has. There's not even any denying it. History records that this idea changed the world. I'm telling you, I just believe it can again. This idea that I can have a relationship with the divine, who's described as love. I can have a relationship where I'm no longer condemned, and the weight's been lifted off my shoulders, and that's not what I did isn't what defines me, but who I can become is now the driving narrative in my life. Guess what's never offered you that? Guilt. Shame's never offered you that. Embarrassment's never offered you that. Pride's never offered you that. Religion certainly has never offered you that. Only in Jesus can I stand guilty, but not condemned. Guilty, but not. And you just want to stay in religion, it's fine. It's going to kill you. It will. It'll take you down so hard. Some of you know that experience. Some of you, it's like it took so much courage to walk through the doors because you've been hurt so bad by religion. My predecessor, a good friend of mine who passed away, it'll be 8 years ago pretty soon. He was fond of saying, Jesus came to kill religion before it kills you. I think he was right on with that. I think Jesus is like, if you're going to let religion kill you, why in the world did I even come? Like I came so you didn't have to deal with that. And it's only in Jesus that you can stand guilty and hold it, and it's okay and not condemned. And it doesn't mean it like erases consequences, that there's nothing to do to kind of go back and say, hey, but it's not defining you, and it's not a weight, and it's not this thing that's like driving your whole existence, and it's not breaking you down like on a cellular level almost. And here's the thing, if you're here and you're just having a hard time like forgiving yourself, here's the thing, in Jesus, the good news is yourself's already been forgiven. It just has. There's no condemnation for those in King Jesus. Because what religion could not do, Jesus has already done, and now it's just, hey, do you want it? And my question for you is, why wouldn't you want it? Why wouldn't you? I mean, even if you've got questions and you haven't figured it all out, and what abouts and what ifs and okay. When we talked about what it takes to be in Jesus, there's not a list of like, you get to be, if it's just like admit and, say yes to Jesus, like, and then it's not also and da-da-da-da-da. No, it's just Jesus. In fact, there was a time at Neighborhood Church, many of you don't remember, but again, my predecessor stood up here and he said, it's Jesus plus nothing equals everything. And people ran out of this church and called us all sorts of really bad names. And I thought, what? I couldn't understand it. Because it seems like everybody who wrote the Bible keeps screaming, it's Jesus plus nothing. And it equals everything. I don't know. I hate religion. It's done a number on me, and it's doing a number on you, and I just think I'd rather have Jesus. And why wouldn't you want that? And yes, I know there's questions. I've got questions. But are you close enough where you could just say, I'll take a step forward. I'll take a step towards this Jesus, because maybe that preacher guy's not totally out of his mind. And maybe Paul, who was an absolute nightmare of a human being, who murdered people and called it good and for God, somehow got to the point where he said, listen, I don't know, but I'm just telling you I don't have a weight. And it's because of this Jesus. Man, so if you've never wanted that and you want that, man, come talk to us. In fact, right, I'm going to pray, and right after, if you just, man, or maybe you're here and you're just like burdened by guilt and shame, whatever. We've got like a whole team. They just would love to hear your story and just pray for you. Because you're not alone. Again, everybody's invited to the club of religion's doing a number on you, and yes, you've screwed up. Like every human being that's ever breathed air is in that club. And then Jesus says, hey, I have this great idea. We don't have to live that way. So if you just want to maybe talk that through or whatever, there'll be some people over here that are I just give cakes away and talk, but we have some really good people that will be right over here. So can I pray for us, and then we'll get out of here? Jesus, thanks so much for knowing what to do with our guilt and shame, because we didn't. We tried. We created all these really cool religions and structures and asked people to jump through them, and then they did, and we still found ourselves in a really bad place. And so, Jesus, if we could just, say yes to you and get off the treadmill and find our way forward where there's just no condemnation or guilt. The weight of guilt that's on our shoulders gets taken off, and we can just find freedom in that. That sounds good. I don't even really know how it all works, but I say yes. And I hope everyone in here would say yes to that offer. Jesus, we love you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen.